You know, they're selling y'all wolf tickets, people. You're eating them right up.
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I back. Trust me, I back.
But I'm not impressed by your performance.
You'll do nothing. You'll do nothing. Shut your fucking mouth, you'll do nothing. You'll do fucking nothing. Not one of you'll do nothing.
I'll tell you what, bro. You know, I was out there, I was fighting all the hitters, bro. You ain't fought no hitters.
Come on, guys. It's normal.
I'm not saying I would fight you. I would kill you.
John, do you think I'm just gonna sit there and let you kill me, John? I mean, really?
No, don't be scared, homie.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the fuck he wants.
I'm gonna beat you into the living death. I mean, maybe that's your job, but where I come from, you know, people like that get slapped.
That's fucking illegal.
Nick Diaz, you just shook up the world. How's that feel?
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Yeah, this is a simulated death match. And you haven't simulated anybody's death yet.
I said it last year. We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
What is the game plan going in against him?
The game plan is you go in there, hit him with some good shit, don't get hit, and come home with a pocket full of cash.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Everybody's on steroids. The whole UFC, everybody.
I'm gonna go home tonight. I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing.
Do you want to be a fighter? That is my question.
Yes. What is up? What is up? Mixed Combat Radio family, another daily edition of the show. Always at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. in the UK, live on YouTube, and now on podcast form in Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, SoundCloud, Spreaker, and tons of other platforms that you can find it at. But those are the main ones. Make sure you leave a 5-star review or some sort of review on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. If you're listening on YouTube, smash that like button. Share the show because it is completely fan-driven. Make sure you go to patreon.com/Mixed Combat Radio to help support the channel. But yeah, so let's get right into it. Also, quick housekeeping note. I did mention on yesterday's show that today was going to be the preview of the UFC card and blah, 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 blah. However, that's not happening. Tomorrow we're going to have a very special guest, Anthony Walker, contributor of ShareDog.com, good friend, good colleague of mine. He will be joining us for that show to break down the UFC card with Junior Dos Santos coming this weekend. And also all the spiciness that is happening between Dana White, Brandon Schaub, Israel Adesanya, all that drama that is happening right then and there.
I want smoke.
Yeah, we know Brandon Schaub. We know. We saw your post an hour ago on IG. Make sure you go check it out on our IG if you want to see it before it's deleted from his, because that will happen, let's be honest. Go to Mixed Combat Radio on Instagram to check that out. But all that will be covered tomorrow on tomorrow's show. It'll be a very MMA and UFC-centric show tomorrow on Friday, just for those that want to know. Today will be mainly boxing and with a little bit of UFC at the end, as usual. But very quickly, shout out to everyone in the live chat. Potential Lunatic, Georgie Porgy, Boxing and Blunts, Fat Apples, Fighter IQ, a.k.a. Ron, the Mastermind, a.k.a. TBV's new host. What up, Ron? Salute to you. MB, Boom Boom, Real Nija. Who else? Rabisky and Brandon Maurice. What is up, everyone? Hope everyone's having a great day on this Thursday. But let's get right into it because, obviously, the news of the boxing world is Billy Joe Saunders versus Demetrius Andrade being ordered by the WBO. Purse bid happening in 10 days. The minimum acceptable bid is $200,000. So basically, we're close to a fight. And then obviously, another piece of news, Billy Joe Saunders went on his Twitter account and said, ready to face Andrade September. Let's get it on. 100 emoji, the low, not thumbs up, but was it the okay emoji? Sure, my management, MTK Global, and promoter Frank Warren will make this happen. Hashtag let's go. So it seems like we're getting a fight. It seems like we are within a week or so of having a bout agreement signed, a done deal between Billy Joe Saunders and Demetrius Andrade. I think September is doable. We're going to talk about how much time do fighters have to promote a fight, etc. when we get to the UFC topic with Cris Cyborg versus Amanda Nunes, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But boxing's always been a little bit shorter. Like, the camps are usually a little bit shorter. The promotional sort of run-up or rollout is sort of smaller than UFC and MMA traditionally. But so I think September's doable. I think Andrade, if he has no issue with that, they can make that happen. If not, why not early October? I really don't see the issue there. I do know that, of course, Billy Joe Saunders, having not fought Martin Murray, got that sort of stay busy fight. He probably wants to fight soon. He's probably been training a lot recently, looking for a fight. So I can understand him wanting one. Andrade, now a free agent. It's going to be interesting to see who sort of goes to bat for him. You know, if it goes to purse bid, let's say, who's going to put a bid up for Demetrius Andrade, or if anyone is. You know, those are just interesting things. We know there's basically been a lot of whispers and chatter about Top Rank and Eddie Hearn sort of making preliminary talks and negotiations with Andrade. It'd be interesting to see if this first fight is the rollout of Andrade's new promotional sort of agreement or connection, so to speak. But digressing from that, this is a fantastic fight. Billy Joe Saunders versus Demetrius Andrade are two of the best middleweights on the planet. Andrade obviously packing a lot more power than Billy Joe Saunders, but Billy Joe Saunders is one of the best technical boxers, not only in his division, but arguably within all of boxing. His footwork, combined with his accuracy and timing, is quite impeccable, to be honest. And when he is in shape, when he is dedicated to the sport, his cardio and athleticism sort of is enough, I would say. I don't think it's amazing light years, sort of unparalleled athleticism and cardio, but it's definitely great enough to beat and dominate and clown guys like David Lemieux, who at the time was, top 8 middleweight of the world at worst. Whatever you want to say about David Lemieux, he is still a respectable opponent in that division. And we saw what Billy Joe Saunders did with him. Now, Demetrius Andrade being a southpaw, being a much more technical and sort of credentialed boxer, amateur-wise, definitely is a much harder test than a David Lemieux. That's obvious. But I think Andrade has really sort of disappointed as of late. And maybe that's him not being dedicated to the craft at the point in time, maybe him being too frustrated with the business side of it, with, his really messed up promotional situation that he's now out of. I don't know, but we saw him struggle with the Jack Calcae and look sort of flat. Even Alantez Fox, what was that, late last year? That wasn't all that impressive. Andrade has failed to really show that he is the elite guy that we sort of thought he was, coming off like the Vans Martirosyan fight, for example. And even that he was knocked down in. Billy Joe Saunders, I think, should be a slight favorite in this matchup to win by decision. But Andrade could come out here and just be a better opponent. Maybe the style matchup of being the southpaw with that really sort of good power. Maybe, not sort of lights out one-punch power that maybe Charlo has. But even then, I think Andrade has significantly more power than Billy Joe Saunders. Is that enough to sort of negate the footwork, the overall boxing skill and technique that Billy Joe Saunders have? I have no idea. It's just going to be interesting to see when this happens, how it's going to happen, technically wise, style wise, within the 12 rounds of action. Can't wait to do the live fight chat on that one and really analyze and dissect it. Also going to be interesting to see really what network this is on US wise. I think it obviously depends on maybe who Andrade lines up with. That is still up in the air potentially. But let's say he's a free agent and decides to go like the Mikey Garcia route for a period of time before Mikey sort of seemingly is all Heyman, even though not technically signed with Heyman. I think Andrade has a position here to where he can sort of do his own thing. And, could they network shop this fight to ESPN again? I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen with that. It's going to be interesting to see. But moving on from that piece of news, stablemate, good friend of Billy Joe Saunders, Tyson Fury getting a official opponent for his replacement. I mean, he's fighting Francisco Pineta, for those that did not know, in Belfast, August 18th. I really do not care about this fight at all. I didn't care about the first one. I care about it, obviously, because it was Tyson Fury's first fight back. But now that sort of, what should I say? Like, that moment's gone. Like, we already had that, like, sort of hallmark moment of what is happening to his career. That, oh, he's back. He's back. Okay, cool. But now he's just fighting another guy that has never done anything. And what Pineta has done, he's lost. Whether it be Vladimir Klitschko, whether it be Shigaev, he has lost at every possible time that he just could have sort of presented himself as a credible heavyweight. And so he's not that. His best win is a Johan Duhaupas. And get this, in 2008, I really could not give two shits about this fight. Verbitsky in the chat saying, OMG, I am so excited. Matt, where's that soundbite? Oh, well, it's right here.
OMG, I am so excited.
Come on, man. You know I got that. You know, I don't... is this going to be a main event in the card? I hope not. I forget what they're going to do. No, I think Carl Frampton's going to be on this card, right? Facing Luke Jackson. I could be wrong. Maybe someone in the chat can correct me on that. I forget. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this matchup. It does nothing for me. I'd rather see a Tyson Fury fight some old, faded heavyweight that we sort of have some name recognition with. You know, sort of like a Chris Arreola type. Maybe not that exact guy, but somebody like that. Like, I would rather see that, and that's a completely winnable fight for Tyson Fury, and it's somebody that we know in some capacity. I really am just not a fan of Tyson Fury on this bum of the month tour that he is going on. I get it. I'm not. I don't hate the guy for it. That's what he should do, probably, just to sort of get back into the swing of things. Shout out to Eric Cruz in the chat. What up? Fat Apple's making a great point that I forgot to bring up. Pineta lost to an out-of-prime Kevin Johnson. And let's not even say out of prime, because Kevin Johnson's been out of his prime for 5 to 8 years. This was last year. Pineta lost to Kevin Johnson last year. And Kevin Johnson just fought last week against Andy Ruiz in a tune-up, where Andy Ruiz won every single round in, basically, and looked flat in. So it's definitely not one of those that I am too hyped on. And keeping it on the UK sort of side of things, but keeping it very light because I want to stay away from this topic without a doubt. And I'm not even going to get into the nitty-gritty, each quote from Eddie and Wilder and Shelly Finkel, etc. I'm not getting into that. But basically, both camps are now, the Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder sort of build up and hype or whatever negotiation process. They're now getting to the point where they're just sniping at each other for shit that happened 2 weeks ago and 3 weeks ago. And AJ has another fight coming up. And it's sort of assumed that Wilder's fighting Brazil as a mandatory. Move on. I'm over the AJ Wilder, back and forth sniping between Shelly Finkel and Eddie Hearn. That is about shit that happened 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think we as a community and as a fan base and as a culture are completely over this shit. The fucking mouth breathers for either side might not be, but we got other shit to think about. Billy Joe Saunders versus Demetrius Andrade. Fantastic fight that's happening in September. You know what fantastic fight's not happening in September? Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder. So let's move on. When you guys fight your respective opponents, then start this shit back up. I don't need another 6 months of this when they're not fighting each other. Give it a few months. Give us a little breather. I think it'd be better for the overall promotion of the fight and the marination of the fight is to give it some room to breathe. You had this process. It did not work. Now move on. I get that Shelly Finkel and Eddie Hearn want to play PR for their respective party and make sure that the public narrative is on their side. But it's completely split down the middle. Neither side is really budging on what they think. This is, throw in any political comparison. It's the same thing. It's like these diametrically opposed fan bases that are not budging on what they think. So move on. Let's talk about other fights that are actually happening. And then we can talk about this later when it's back on. When AJ goes out there and absolutely knocks out and just trashes the small cruiserweight that is Povetkin, and then Wilder goes and knocks out the mummy that is Dominic Breazeale, then we can talk about it again. Then we can go back into the sniping. Then I'm all for the smoke, all for the spilling the tea. I'm all for that. But until then, Shelly, Eddie, I'm good, fam. I'm good on it. So let's move on. That's all I got to say on that. But anyways, that was it for the boxing topics of the show. It's going to be a quick show today, obviously. Tomorrow's going to be a jam-packed show with Anthony Walker, again, from Showdown.com. Make sure you tune into that one. That should be a fun one. We're going to cover basically everything that we can think of, and that should be a very, very long and substantive show. But moving on to the MMA portion of the show, the UFC portion of the show, the other combat sports portion of the show. And for those that do not want to listen to it, you guys can just, go do your own thing. It's okay, completely acceptable. For those that are slightly intrigued, we do have a mega fight being announced very soon, probably, between two UFC champions in two different divisions in the first ever champion versus champion fight in, different divisions, I want to say. I think there was an interim champion versus champion fight at one point. Anyways, digressing. Champion versus champion fight in women's UFC history. Yes. Cris Cyborg versus Amanda Nunes. They are at odds over the date, but Amanda Nunes posted a picture of her signing a bout agreement for December 23rd. I want to say the date. Hold on, let me get that exact date. I apologize. Cris Cyborg wanting September 8th in UFC Dallas at UFC 228. And December 29 is what Amanda Nunes wants. Amanda Nunes being the bantamweight champion at 135 pounds. Cris Cyborg being one of the best female fighters of all time across all sports probably, is a 145-pound champ. We're basically saying both Brazilian, right, Matt? Yes, both are Brazilian fighters. Obviously, Brazil being a huge market for MMA. Now, I will say this quickly about the date, because that's obviously a sticking point at this point in the negotiation process, and they are far apart on what the date is. One wanting December, one wanting September 8th. Cris Cyborg, I'm sorry, September 8th is not going to work. It's just not. I think it's too soon to promote this type of fight. And I think even though she came out and said that it probably does pay-per-view-wise 350,000 pay-per-views, I think if you put, let's say, this fight in October, this fight in November, it does a lot better than that. Maybe not, to where it does 1 million, but I think it can do maybe 450,000 at that point. 500,000. Fat Apple saying, damn, MMA, can't you talk about Donaire joining the WBSS? And I've already talked about that, Fat Apples. I know you kind of tuned into MCR a little bit late in the transition, but I have 100% covered Donaire in the World Boxing Super Series. Check the descriptions on some of the videos. You may be able to find where it's at, but I definitely talk about the World Boxing Super Series ad nauseum. And we sort of broke down when those fighters were rumored to be too. Like Inoue has been sort of known to be in the tournament for a while. Just because it was announced yesterday doesn't mean it's that different. Let's be honest. Boxing and blunts. Let me know where you're coming from, like where you live, because you're asking a question about what the states are like. So I'm curious where you live. How big is MMA compared to boxing in the States? It's significantly bigger, I would say. I think boxing has had higher highs, obviously, throughout the past, I'd say, 20 years. With the Mayweather era, the Mayweather run, that is unheralded, basically, in all of combat sports. Like, that will never be replicated and was never really done before, except for maybe like Ali, and then you have to go way back in like the Joe Louis and Max Schmeling days to really find a comparison to that. So boxing was always higher in terms of its peaks than MMA. But MMA consistently is a better brand or more well-known brand in the U.S. right now, I would say. And boxing and blunt scenes from the U.K. All right. Because obviously boxing is much bigger than MMA in the U.K. Now, MMA is not that big in these states, I would say. The UFC is. I know that distinction is a little bit hard for some people, even though the UFC is MMA, but MMA is not necessarily UFC in a sense. No, they're both kind of the same. You know what I mean. Anyways, digressing. It's like Bellator. No one gives a fuck about Bellator or LFA or PFL. Like, nobody gives a fuck about these minor regional sort of promotional companies. While in boxing, you have like Top Rank fans. You have Golden Boy fans. You have Canelo fans, Triple G fans. It's a little bit more splintered fragmented, I should say, in terms of its branding. While MMA in the States is the UFC. While MMA in Japan is more like Ryzen. So, Fat Apple saying, Matt, I know some boxing news you missed. Well, you can always bring it up. I mean, that's the beauty of being in the live chat during the show. And for those listening on podcasts, we're always live on YouTube. So, Fat Apples, you can always just put out some topics right there, and I'll get to them. But moving back, digressing, I should say, very quickly until Fat Apples delivers some actual news. Cris Cyborg versus Amanda Nunes. I think it's a fantastic fight. Preliminary, I'm going to pick Amanda Nunes. I Air Cruz, man, that's too much. Saying according to my source, Bob Arum, MMA is only for rednecks. Yes, actually, he said neo-Nazis and skinheads, I want to say. Shout out to Bob Arum. You know, but it is what it is. Amanda Nunes, Cris Cyborg. I think it's a fantastic style matchup. Obviously, Amanda Nunes is a little more tight with her striking technique. Well, Cyborg is a little more wild, a little more forceful with it, a little more ferocious with her striking offense. Though we saw, like with the Holly Holm fight, that Cyborg was able to dial it back and really refined and sort of counter everything that Holly Holm was able to do with really short, compact hooks. Can Amanda Nunes deal with that? I think it's going to be interesting to find out. I can't wait to do a bunch of tape study on that. I can't wait to really dive into that one stylistically and striking-wise and see who has the advantages. Because it is possibly, it's one of the best fights to be made in MMA history, let alone, I would say, like women's MMA history, is this fight. Obviously, Ronda Rousey, Cris Cyborg was the fight forever. That did not happen. But Amanda Nunes has really, I think, created a legacy for herself that, while undervalued and underrated because the UFC just frankly does not promote her and does not really care to promote her, I think that her run at the top right now is slowly starting to match Ronda Rousey's. It's obviously a different style and tone. She does not have the undefeated run, so to speak. Like she has losses on her resume. It's a little bit different. I think it doesn't matter. I think when we talk about Amanda Nunes 10, 15, 20 years from now, us hardcores are going to realize that Amanda Nunes is probably one of the best women's fighters, if not fighters, ever. And if she beats Cyborg, which I think is possible, I'm not going to say she should be the favorite, but her fundamental technique is really something to want to see with Cris Cyborg. Even though, let's be honest, Cris Cyborg has outstruck and been the better striker than a striker like Holly Holm. It's going to be fascinating to watch and dissect, like I've said. But yeah, that's about it. We're going to move on to nothing. We're out of here. Quick one, I know. Early edition, or I should say quick edition of MCR. It's a news light show. And again, I planned on doing a whole breakdown of the UFC card, but I pushed that off because I reached out to Anthony and I wanted him on. Somebody said in the chat, I want to address it saying, oh yeah, Rubisky saying, Matt, you going to get a co-host soon? Hey, right here, mixedcombatradio@gmail.com. Send in your resume, anyone out there. Or if you're, let's say, a colleague of mine and you want to get a part of it, all you have to do is ask. It's not that hard. Where's Fat Apple's question? I don't see it. Oh, question. What do you make of this? Hold on, let me stop this right now. Sorry, let me stop this. Because Fat Apples did ask a question. What do you make of this Holyfield run, WBC 147 boxing Super Series for lesser opponents that was announced today in a presser? Shame, no guarantee of a WBC title shot. I did not see that today. Was that announced like while I was live on air? Hold on. Let's Fat Apple's actually, over here making content. Let me see. Let me get on the back burner. Because if that was announced, because then can someone send me a link to that, please? Because I did not see anything about that. I haven't seen any official announcement on sort of any outlet that I have open right now, all the major ones. Maybe it was announced on Twitter during the show, but Fat Apples definitely sent me a link via DM on one of these platforms. Twitter and Instagram are the best ways, not Facebook. Facebook, our account was suspended. Hashtag sad music. Where's the sad music? Yes, our Facebook account was suspended. RIP Facebook account. Shout out to the UFC for always banning me for stupid shit. But Fat Apple has definitely sent me a link to wherever you're finding that information. I do not see that. But if Holyfield is running a tournament, like you said, for the World Boxing Super Series for the 147-pound division, and it's just the WBC sort of sanctioning body, I'm sort of intrigued, but not absolutely intrigued. Weird thing. And quickly, Kyle Michaels in the chat saying, and shout out to Kyle, he's one of our social media directors, or I should say the social media director, saying Frank Yeager versus Korean Zombie being negotiated for UFC 229. Yes.
OMG, I am so excited.
Yes, that is awesome. Fat Apple saying it's not on Twitter or Instagram, only on Facebook. But then send me an email, mixedcombatradio@gmail.com. It's the most surefire way to reach me, because that's my work email and I check it all the time. But yes, sorry, let me bring that back up. Frank Yeager versus Korean Zombie, fantastic fight. I'll break it down more tomorrow with Anthony Walker from ShareDog.com, which is one of the most historic or foundational websites in MMA history. Definitely. And Anthony's just a good guy. Great mind for the sport. Going to be on for that one again, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, live on YouTube, 10 p.m. in the UK for those that are our UK listeners, which is a big chunk of you guys. There's about like 40% of you guys are from the UK. Shout out to you. Shout out to all of our Australian listeners. A huge Portuguese audience base too, and Greece. Shout out to you guys out there in weird countries that I did not think cared about combat sports. Salute to you. Listen on the podcast. Make sure you leave a review wherever you listen to the podcast. Subscribe, follow, share. Help us reach 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Hit that bell icon so you stay notified. And I'll be back tomorrow. Peace.